Describes her meetings inside the Trump White House. Also breaking, police just holding a news conference in Boston. Two doctors engaged to be married, both found murdered. And new reporting tonight on what was found in their apartment. The college student who fell down the stairs, why did no one call for help for 12 hours? 18 frat brothers now facing charges, and tonight one of those students who was there comes forward. The headline just in, the serial sniper allegedly taking aim at drivers and at people in their front yards, what we've just learned. And the shark alert tonight on the American coast. Nearly 24 great whites spotted in the water.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Monday night. And we begin with former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. Her testimony ending just a short time ago, offering in detail the warning she says she gave the White House about President Trump's national security advisor, retired General Michael Flynn. Yates telling Congress about her two meetings inside the White House with the White House counsel and what he then asked about Flynn. And she made it clear today, she says she warned them Flynn was, in her words, compromised and could be blackmailed by Russia. Yet Michael Flynn would stay on the job for weeks and was there for a call with President Trump and President Putin. ABC senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas leading us off.
She walked into a crush of cameras. Senator Lindsey Graham opening with this.
Back in your cages.
The intense scrutiny following every word of the testimony from former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates as she outlined the steps she took to warn the White House about then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
Because this was a matter of some urgency.
Yates describing an intense call to White House counsel Don McGahn on the morning of January 26th.
I called Don McGahn first thing that morning and told him that I had a very sensitive matter that I needed to discuss with him, that I couldn't talk about it on the phone, and that I needed to come see him.
She went to the White House that very day to discuss concerns Flynn might have been lying to the White House.
The vice president was unknowingly making false statements to the public, and because we believed that General Flynn was compromised with respect to the Russians. We believed that the Russians knew this, and that created a compromise situation, a situation where the national security advisor essentially could be blackmailed by the Russians.
Yates citing repeated assertions from Trump officials suggesting that Flynn had told them he had not discussed President Obama's sanctions against the Kremlin for meddling in the U.S. election on a call with the Russian ambassador. But Yates knew otherwise because Flynn was caught on electronic surveillance, allegedly discussing those sanctions the same day they were announced.
We were concerned that the American people had been misled.
So what you're saying is that General Flynn lied to the vice president.
That's certainly how it appeared, yes. The underlying conduct that General Flynn had engaged in was problematic in and of itself.
The next day, another urgent meeting at the White House.
The first topic in the second meeting was essentially, why does it matter to DOJ if one White House official lies to another?
The White House counsel also wanted to know if Flynn likely faced criminal charges and expressed concern that taking action against Flynn might interfere with an ongoing FBI investigation.
And the fourth topic was his request to see the underlying evidence.
Yates said the evidence was presented to the White House on the morning of January 30th, the very day she was fired for refusing to enforce President Trump's travel ban.
I don't know whether that ever happened, whether they ever looked at that evidence or not.
Democrats today asking why Flynn was allowed to stay in his job for 18 days after the warning, even participating in an Oval Office phone call between President Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin. But some Republicans were focusing on how classified information about Flynn ended up in the press.
Have either of you ever been an anonymous source in a news report about matters relating to Mr. Trump, his associates, or Russians' attempt to meddle in the election?
No.
Absolutely not.
And Yates with a final warning to the American people about Russian meddling.
I think they're coming back, Senator, and I think that we have to do a whole lot more, both to harden our election systems, our state election systems, to ensure that folks out there know when they're looking at news feeds that it may not be real news that they're reading.
All right, so let's get to Pierre Thomas live at the Capitol tonight. Yates also testifying, Pierre, that the White House counsel asked during one of those meetings whether Flynn should be fired. They asked her.
David, Yates said she offered no recommendations, saying it was a White House call, not hers. And we are hearing today that the Obama administration officials that the president warned Trump in the Oval Office about Flynn just 2 days after the election. David?
Yet the president warned them as well. All right, Pierre Thomas leading us off. Thank you. Sally Yates not only making news over her warnings involving retired General Michael Flynn. As you'll remember, the acting AG was fired after she refused to enforce President Trump's travel ban. She believed the ban was unconstitutional. She was pressed on that today. Listen to this.
Who appointed you to the United States Supreme Court?
I was appointed.
That determined, isn't it a court of final jurisdiction decides what's constitutional and not?
I personally wrestled over this decision, and it was not one that I took lightly at all. I believe that it is the responsibility of the Attorney General, if the president asks him or her to do something that he or she believes is unlawful or unconstitutional, to say no. And that's
Sally Yates on the Hill testifying about her role, standing up to the proposed ban and then getting fired because of it. The president's first version of that ban was blocked by the courts. A new version was halted too, and today was debated yet again. Will it survive this time? At issue, this question. Should the president's words while he was on the campaign trail matter in determining his true intention for the temporary ban? Here's ABC senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega tonight.
In a Virginia appellate court today, one of President Trump's most controversial campaign promises came back to haunt him.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Plaintiffs say that is proof the president's travel ban temporarily restricting people from 6 majority Muslim countries at its heart is a Muslim ban. Lawyers for the Trump administration argue the president's statements before Election Day don't count.
Generally, they shouldn't get much weight because you haven't taken the oath of office to uphold the Constitution. You haven't formed an administration or consulted with them.
But some of the 13 judges skeptical.
So you're saying then the president could say that every day as a candidate for a year, I intend to ban Muslims. They are bad people. And then the first day in office, he does that. You're saying that none of those statements could be considered?
Another judge weighing in.
He's never repudiated what he said about the Muslim ban. It's still on his website.
Why does the president's website still explicitly call for, quote, preventing Muslim immigration?
I'm not aware of what's on the campaign's website. You'd have to ask them.
If it's still on the website, if the president's words are being used against him in court today, is it worth you clarifying that once and for all?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why I've been very clear. I don't think I need to clarify what we have said or what the president said.
And within minutes of our question, that Muslim ban statement wiped from the site. Back in February, when the courts first put the executive order on hold, the president warned potential terrorists would pour into the country. And have you seen any evidence that that's been the case in the 3 months since this ban was lifted?
I think that's a question for the Department of Homeland Security.
And Cecilia Vega joins me from the White House tonight. Cecilia, we heard Sean Spicer there saying you should ask the Department of Homeland Security, and so you did. What did they tell you?
Well, David, they say that unfortunately this information is not readily available. We do not expect a ruling on this travel ban case for a few weeks, David. It appears headed all the way to the Supreme Court.
All right, Cecilia Vega with us tonight as well. Cecilia, thank you. We move on to other news this Monday night into the investigation underway this evening in Boston. The district attorney there holding a news conference just a short time ago. 2 doctors murdered. The couple was engaged to be married. The suspect was arraigned today in his hospital bed. And at that news conference, the DA revealing what they discovered at the scene. ABC's Eva Pilgrim from Boston.
Eyes closed, laying in a hospital bed, the man suspected of killing 2 Boston doctors in their luxury apartment appeared before a judge.
A plea of not guilty has entered on your behalf on both counts.
30-year-old Bampuman Texera, who was shot by police during his arrest, now facing 2 counts of murder in the gruesome deaths of Dr. Richard Field and his fiancée, Dr. Lena Bolanos, Friday night.
Both individuals, Your Honor, were bound and both were deceased.
Prosecutors revealing today they found a bag filled with jewelry from one of the victims along with a replica gun.
His murder defies rational explanation.
On Friday night, Dr. Field desperately texted a friend for help.
Got a message from his friend saying that there's a gunman in the house.
Police rushing to the apartment, finding the suspect in a dark hallway before opening fire. Police say last month Texera was released from prison after serving time for bank robbery captured here on a surveillance camera. He previously worked as a security guard in a nearby building.
You can't get up there without a key. Like the elevator wouldn't open the door for you without a key. So there's no access unless someone lets you in.
David, authorities aren't confirming how Texeira was able to get up to the apartment, but are saying that he did not know the couple personally. David?
Eva Pilgrim in Boston tonight. Thank you, Eva. Next this evening to the case-making national headlines at Penn State, where a college student fell down the stairs, and authorities say it took 12 hours before anyone called for help. That student died. 18 students now facing charges tonight, and one fraternity brother is coming forward with what he saw. ABC's Gio Benitez on campus.
Tonight, as 18 fraternity brothers face charges in connection with the hazing death of a pledge, another brother not charged is now speaking out with our Robin Roberts.
There were people surrounding him, kind of pointing and laughing. And I said, "Why is Tim on the couch?" And they were like, "Oh, he's just fine. He's just had too much to drink."
Cordell Davis says he saw 19-year-old Tim Piazza after he had fallen down a staircase following what prosecutors say was a hazing ritual of extreme drinking. Surveillance cameras reportedly capturing the brothers slapping him, pouring water over him, seemingly trying to wake him up. Davis checking his pulse.
I said, "We should call 911, get him in an ambulance." And I'm screaming. I got thrown against the wall, and I didn't know what to do after that. I felt kind of useless, and I felt like I had no say in the situation after that.
You didn't feel like you could leave and call somewhere else, go outside or do anything? You didn't think that was...
I was told that I was overreacting.
Investigators say someone finally called 911 nearly 12 hours after the fall, but it was too late. Meanwhile, Davis says the frat brothers weren't worried about those surveillance cameras.
They said, "Oh, the cameras aren't going to be checked."
And David, 8 of the brothers have been charged with involuntary manslaughter and assault. Defense attorneys saying there wasn't any intent, reportedly arguing that they didn't realize the seriousness of Piazza's injuries. David?
Gio Benitez at Penn State. Overseas tonight, North Korea in a new act of provocation, taking another American into custody. North Korean media reports that Kim Hak-song has been detained on suspicion of, quote, hostile acts. He was doing agricultural work at a university in Pyongyang. Another American teacher at that university was detained last week. At least 4 Americans are now being held by the North Korean regime. And to France tonight, getting ready for a new president now after a high-stakes election being watched by so many right here in the U.S. Would French voters halt the wave of nationalism? Marine Le Pen, who publicly supported Donald Trump and who wanted to take France out of the EU, the Euro, and NATO, conceding defeat. Celebrating victory, the 39-year-old centrist Emmanuel Macron with France's new First Lady. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Terry Moran from Paris tonight.
A night to remember in Paris. Emmanuel Macron, joined by his wife and chief advisor Brigitte, basks in his victory. At 39, the youngest leader of France since Napoleon.
Merci, mes amis!
And this morning, already taking center stage, joining incumbent President Francois Hollande in a solemn ceremony to mark the end of World War II in Europe. In choosing Macron, a pro-European Union centrist, French voters decisively rejected the far-right nationalism of Marine Le Pen, who President Trump practically endorsed, calling her the strongest candidate. The margin, a whopping 66-34. Le Pen was dancing last night after conceding defeat, but her campaign, which stoked fears of terrorism after hundreds have been killed in recent attacks here, nevertheless failed miserably. Her defeat, a crushing blow to the right-wing nationalist movements in Europe and perhaps elsewhere. Tonight there's an investigation into that massive computer hack of the Macron campaign, which not only did not help Marine Le Pen, but may have backfired, with voters angry at a cyber attack here. David?
Hacking there in France as well. Terry Moran with us from Paris. Terry, thank you. And back here at home tonight into the wildfire threat in the south tonight. Mandatory evacuations now widening, crews battling more than 100 fires in Florida alone. The worst of them tonight along the border with Georgia. The flames and smoke rising above the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. The smoke from that fire seen from space. You can see it right there drifting out over the Atlantic Ocean. There is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Monday. 2 female police officers attacked, fighting with a suspect. The officers then thrown to the ground, punched. The suspect allegedly trying to steal one of their guns. You will see the Good Samaritans who rush in to help. We have a breaking headline coming in at this hour. The serial sniper allegedly taking aim at people in their cars and in their front yards. What we've now learned. And the shark warning along the American coastline tonight. Nearly 24 great whites in the waters. Some of them spotted just 10 feet from shore. We're back in a moment.
Our generation really has gotten used to a whole new world.
It's been hard sometimes, but switching to consumer cellular, easy.
Now our cell phone bill is a fraction of what it used to be.
Our average customers get everything they need for about $25 a month, and plans start at only $10 a month. Plus, AARP members get exclusive discounts, and we're proud to have received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service. For a limited time, get your first month of service free. Call, go online, or visit a Target store today.
Allergy symptoms distracting you? Doctors recommend taking Claritin every day of your allergy season for continuous relief. Claritin provides powerful, non-drowsy 24-hour relief for fewer interruptions from the amazing things you do every day. Live Claritin Clear every day. When you have allergies, it can seem like triggers pop up everywhere.